Hi guys, Stefan here from Tech Testers, and today we're going to look at Corsair's brand new Ironclaw RGB Wireless mouse, which comes in at $79 or 79 euros and is meant to be one of the new options for people like myself, i.e. big guys. And we all know there aren't enough big mice in this world, so let's open it up and see if it's worth the money.
This video is brought to you by the Aorus 8027QD, Gigabyte's very first gaming monitor that earned my top recommendation if you're looking for a fast, solid performing 27-inch Quad HD monitor for gaming and creative tasks. Get yours using the link in the description below.
So in today's video, I'm mostly going to talk to you about that very real problem that taller Dutchmen like myself face when choosing peripherals, and it is that most of them are just too small. Take something like the G703, which is a perfectly average mouse for most people. Most people are going to love it. If you have big hands, it can look or feel silly. Now keep in mind, being bigger does not necessarily mean you want a bigger mouse, but I know a lot of you guys do want something that fills the hand properly. Over the years, a lot of people have asked me for XXL gaming mouse advice, and I've always come down to one model, which was the Roccat Cone. Now the Roccat Cone has gone through a dozen or so iterations over the last 10 years, but it always came down to the same thing. Slightly larger, nice materials, good performance at $80 or euros, which is kind of acceptable if you're looking for something a bit out of the ordinary. Now, and earlier this year, Corsair brought us a new option, which is the Ironclaw RGB or RGB Platinum, or they always put some stuff behind their product that I keep forgetting. And the Ironclaw was actually a very good deal because it's considerably cheaper. You can actually pick it up for as little as $50 or 55 euros now. It has a nice extra large shape, has a top sensor, has top switches, and is supported by a good software package. So if you were looking for an extra large mouse in the last few months or so, this has become my go-to recommendation. So today they're bringing us a wireless version of that exact same mouse. And I say exact same, but that's not actually entirely true. Now it does share the same name and it does share the same shape, which is what I want to talk about first. So if you have big hands in the 20 to 22 centimeter range and you're looking for a palm grip mouse, this is a perfect shape. It is almost impossible to argue with that. Now before I carry on, there is a lot of arguments. What is the right mouse? And there is, in my opinion, no such thing. Now, I will agree with the general rule that a competitive FPS gaming mouse is small and light, and obviously this one is neither. So if you're primarily looking for a Counter-Strike or Black Ops or Apex Legends mouse, this might not be for you. However, if you are looking for an all-rounder with a comfortable shape and you don't care about a 1 millisecond response time, less because when you're in palm grip, you're just not as fast as when you're holding the mouse in a more aggressive claw grip, then this is definitely interesting. So as soon as we accept the fact that this isn't as much as an FPS mouse as it is an all-round mouse, some of the differences that Corsair introduced with this mouse become very sensible. So one of the main differences they brought is the mouse now has extra buttons. There's now 3 extra buttons on the side, which is interesting because it's suddenly not trying to compete with FPS mice by being super light, but instead it's trying to compete with something like a Logitech G502, which is popular because of all the extra buttons it has. So this has essentially now become a oversized G502, which is, again, if you're looking for something large, very good news. Now obviously there's a lot of typical gaming mouse features here. There's a top optical sensor, there's Omron switches rated at 50 million clicks, which have a really nice click to them. There is RGB, because RGB, as we all know, is insanely important for reasons. And there's hardware profiles, so you can actually make settings and store them on the mouse, take them with you. I mean, that's all pretty cool stuff. That's also become pretty much the default in this price class. So happy it's there, and we're happy they're not making any mistakes, but at the same time, that doesn't really make the mouse quite unique. I will give Corsair software some kudos, because I do think it's one of the nicest software packages to work with. It works well. It's not overly large, and I haven't had a single problem with it, nor does it require you to register, which is a really dumb idea.
Alright, just to go over the software real quick, it's unified, so all your connected devices are actually in the same package, which is kind of cool. Of course, we find the usual options, like being able to reconfigure each of the 10 buttons, either to some preset options or to custom macros if you want. There are the RGB options, so we can set each of the 3 lighting zones to our own liking. There's a few odd extras there, like being able to change your mouse color based on your PC temperature, which is kind of cool. Now we can set a number of DPI presets as well that we can swap between, and as this is a top optical, you can set it to 1 DPI increments if you want. That's kind of comes with the top optical sensor. I don't think most people will use it. Still kind of cool to have. And even though there isn't a dedicated sniper button on the Ironclaw, you can actually assign one and use a temporary DPI, so that's pretty cool. Now we also find the software and firmware update notifications. I mean, it's pretty much all the stuff you'd expect to get, just actually executed very well, which really isn't a given in modern peripherals.
Obviously, it's also worth talking about the fact now that it's wireless, that the battery life and the wireless performance are good. I do think their 50-hour battery claim is pushing it a bit, because that only counts for Bluetooth mode, which is cool that they add a Bluetooth mode if you have a laptop. But if you care about performance, you will want to use the 2.4 GHz dongle anyway, which will cut your battery life roughly in half. So that's something to consider. Still, it's a decent battery life. Click latency is 4 milliseconds slower than the G4 or 3, which is pretty decent, especially considering the use cases we see for this. And honestly, pretty much the only thing that I really don't like is the cable. And I think that's such a stupid downside, because reviewers have been telling mouse manufacturers for years now, please give us flexible cables, cables that don't move the mouse around when you move the cable, and they still managed to include a very sturdy one with this one. That's a wireless mouse. It shouldn't really bother you so much because it's not going to be on the wire most of the time. Still, it will be sometimes when you have to charge it. That happens. I think they could have done a better job with that. Now, there's a few things I could nitpick about. I do personally prefer having a bit clearer steps in the scroll wheel. That will be subjective. I think the back thumb button could have been a little bit clickier. It's a little bit on the soft side for me. But again, that would be nitpicking on an overall decent performance. And this brings me to the conclusion of this Ironclaw, and that it's actually a great mouse. Now, there is a big problem with mice, and it is that great has become the new standard. So it's almost impossible to buy a mouse that's not great, which is good news if you're a consumer worried about buying a bad mouse, which is less good news if you're a manufacturer trying to make something truly exceptional. Now, if you're trying to make an exceptional mid-size mouse, it's almost impossible to set yourself apart. However, Corsair has the upside of being in the extra large mouse space where literally, well, there's almost no competition. If you're like me, you want something big for everyday use, it is really hard to argue with the value that Corsair offers. Whether you like the wired Ironclaw, or personally what I would do is say, take the wireless one, take the extra buttons, and have a pretty awesome ultimate extra large mouse. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope this was helpful. If you're like me and you're just really annoyed with the world about all the mice being too small, join our Discord, we'll have a beer together and we'll talk it over some more. If not, look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Bye.